from 1966 till 1970-71, things got very difficult in the denomination. Before that time, you see, when I was converted in 1947, there were very few evangelical ministers in the Presbyterian Church of Wales. There were a few, but not many. I could count them possibly on one hand, 5, or might be 2 hands, but not more than that. Liberal theology, modernistic theology, was in control of everything. And those of us who were converted in those years after the war and were going in for the ministry or had come into the ministry, we would stand up in presbytery and association, and the highest court of the denomination was the General Assembly, would stand up in those places. But we were losing ground all the time. The other side, the liberal side, were in the majority and we couldn't do anything. So that was hard. But then there was the ecumenical movement. There was a movement towards unity between the denominations in the church as a whole. And there was a resolution passed in the General Assembly, either 70 or 71, that ministers, that we all had to accept connection with the British Council of Churches and the World Council of Churches, the ecumenical movement, in other words, and we couldn't speak against it. Ministers didn't even have freedom of conscience to speak against it. Well, that was the last straw for some of us. We felt, this was the point of no return. We couldn't go along with that. And although we wrote and said, no liberty was given us. So there were several then in different parts of Wales who began to think they had to leave the Presbyterian Church of Wales. In this area, North East Wales, between January 1971 and January 1975, 5 ministers left the Presbyterian Church of Wales. Not all at the same time. We were all doing it for the same reason, but we, as God convicted us and spoke to us and our conscience felt we couldn't stay, we acted individually. We didn't do it all together, but we acted individually. This was going on not just here, but in other parts of Wales as well. So a number of evangelical churches came into being in the 70s, late 60s and 70s for that matter. I should say that while I've given the negative side for coming out, the liberalism in the theological realm and the ecumenicity that was being pressed by the denomination, those were negative reasons. I'm sure there was a positive reason for coming out, that God was leading us out, intending to set up these evangelical churches. He was doing a new thing in Wales to preserve the gospel witness in these churches and in these areas. The men who came out would stand for the authority and the infallibility of Scripture, the deity of Christ, atoning sacrifice of Christ, substitutionary sacrifice of Christ, his bodily resurrection. They would believe in the reality of heaven and hell, and they would believe in the absolute necessity of a person to be born again. And the liberal theology, denied all of those things, in effect. Right. I certainly didn't start from the Bible. I remember hearing a discussion in presbytery on one occasion where I think something was to do with the authority of the Bible. And the man who spoke on it undermined the authority of the Bible, really. And the man who chaired it made a statement like this. Having heard that, he said, I don't think it would make any difference if we didn't have a Bible. This was a minister in the Presbyterian Church of Wales who said it wouldn't make any difference if we didn't have a Bible. So you could do without it. In other words, everybody could believe anything they liked. So that's symbolic of the liberalism of the day. It was extreme liberalism. January 1972, I'd given my notice to the elders that I was leaving at the end of March, 31st of March. You normally gave 3 months' notice. Towards the end of January, A number of people had expressed a wish to leave as well, and I invited those to meet in the manse. We were in the manse in the village then, on the Friday night, and we met for prayer initially, and then we started every week. We met on a Friday night, about 12 or 15 there were initially, and we prayed mainly, but we also did discuss things that were relevant. Where were we going to meet if we met? How would we manage for finances? I was preaching quite often at a Welsh chapel about a quarter of a mile along the road from the Presbyterian Church on the Mould Road. I was preaching there in Welsh almost once a month for them on a Sunday afternoon. They met at 2:30. I was on very good terms with them. There were only about 6 or 7 or 8 of them. But I went to see the deacon. When I told him what we wanted, he was immediately sympathetic and in favour that we could use the building morning and evening. They would carry on meeting once or twice a month. I don't know how often they met then, on a Sunday afternoon. That was all they did. We could have it in the weeknights. By the end of March, I was still uncertain whether the numbers would be able to support me. And of course we had 5 children between the age of 16 and 6 or something like that. And I wasn't sure whether I should look for some secular work to support the family for the time being, at least. We're praying about it, of course, and there was work offered to me by some Christians, and I still didn't know what to do. And my wife and I prayed about it, and I said, I think we'll have to just wait and see how the Lord leads in the next few days. I don't think I was deliberately looking for a sign as such, but I was waiting to see how the Lord led. And on the Thursday before Good Friday, an envelope came through the door. It was from members of the Presbyterian Church who were not coming out with us, but sent a small sum of money as a thank you gift for my ministry, and said they were sorry I was going. Then the next day, Good Friday, there was a post. There was a post on Good Friday in those days. And in the post, there was a cheque from some friends of ours, somewhere else in Wales. A very substantial cheque. For £300, actually, which was a lot of money in those days. They'd heard what was happening, and they sent this, hoping that it would be some help. And I think I said to Mabel, my wife then, said, I think this is saying to us that you shouldn't take the job at the moment, at least that the Lord can support you without it. Of course, we had to look for a house, and it was quite difficult because we were in the Presbyterian manse, and they were making efforts to get us out of the manse, and we should have left, but there was nowhere for us to go at that time. But by September, we were able to purchase a house in another part of the village at an auction. I think I'd applied for a mortgage from the council. It was called an option mortgage, I think. And with the money we had and this option mortgage, we felt we could go to a certain level at the auction. And we decided the cut-off point was 4,750. The man who was auctioning it, I knew him because he was he had an auction house in Holywell, and I'd known him there. He said, people are expecting about 6,000, he said. I didn't tell him what we were going for, but we went to the auction, which was in the front room of the house, and there was bidding by some other party, and it went up to 4,700, and then it went up 4,725, I think the other man bid, and I bid 4,750, and it stopped. And we were able to buy it for the figure that we were going to, 4,750. And eventually, money was lent us by other people, and one church and other people, and the church here gave a substantial sum as well towards it. And I didn't need the option mortgage from the council. in the end. We had private loans, which people said we would pay back either in our own time. One wanted it paid back in 5 years, but there was no interest on any of those loans. And this was, we moved in 1973, February the 1st, January the 31st, or February the 1st, I don't remember which. And all the loans were paid off by about 1978. So the Lord provided all that. And then I was the pastor of that church from April 1972 till August 1995, 23 years.